Why hello everybody, this time I actually remembered to click the go live button before actually jumping in and starting to talk, which is unusual for me. Tom Colohue, not the smartest man in the room, but pretty much any situation, but in this particular instance, finally cracked it. Welcome, hello, greetings earthlings, etc. My name is Tom Colohue and today I'm going to be previewing a Smackdown in which the story is going to be pretty much all about Charlotte Flair. Not really a surprise to anybody involved. If you're a regular here, you know we work. If you're new here, then here's how it goes. We are Ask Me Anything. We are not just necessarily wrestling, but we are wrestling primarily. So we focus mostly on what's going on in the wonderful, wonderful, wonderful world of wrestling and whatever other crazy nonsense is going on in the world in general. But you can ask me whatever question you would like, while we also preview SmackDown, talk about the biggest wrestling news before later on we go into spoiler warning, which is our 10 o'clock news show, as it were. The user is here saying, hi mate, fresh shave. Indeed. Went for something a little bit different. I think I look like a child now. Hopefully my hair goes greyer and faster, and then I can look like an old child. But it's a good start, isn't it? I don't look terrible. I don't hate it, is what I'm saying. But I haven't actually shaved since June. So I felt it was needed. Yo, Kervin, how are you doing? By all means, anyone here, jump in, say hi. Don't just ask me questions. Communicate. Let me know how you're doing. Tell me about your day. Be sure to click like on the video as well. That helps us grow here. We are now sitting at 735 subscribers. Slowly but surely getting closer to that 750, 3/4 of the way to monetization mark. And a huge thank you goes out to everyone who joins us for these streams for it. So we need to open by talking about Charlotte Flair. It's sort of inescapable right now. Charlotte Flair is the big talking point in wrestling at the moment. There's no war going on between Fox and TNT. There's no WWE AEW battle going on right now. So when Charlotte Flair accidentally gets a fight picked with her, or intentionally gets a fight picked with her, depending on what side you're on, it's worth talking about. Now, there is quite a bit of information that came out about Charlotte Flair over the last week that has now been firmly proven untrue. There are obviously people who made reports about what Charlotte wanted, which were disputed heavily by other wrestling journalists. But it's interesting to see that people really do pick favourites when it comes to wrestling journalists, even to the point that someone who was their favourite gets shit on from a great height. What happened with Charlotte Flair is an example of someone essentially getting too big for their boots, as it were, and that seems to be how it's playing out. When it comes to Charlotte and Becky, that is still the plan for Survivor Series, but we will continue to see a feud between Charlotte and Sasha, the idea being at any point, if the WWE is not happy with Charlotte Flair tonight, they can take the championship away from her, thus forcing us into a situation whereby our Survivor Series match is Sasha Banks versus Becky Lynch instead of Charlotte Flair versus Becky Lynch. There are certainly quite a few people who would prefer that. I'm not personally one of them. I'd like to see a Becky versus Charlotte match before then moving to Becky versus Sasha, as we have just seen Sasha versus Becky, but we will see how it plays out. It really does depend on what happens backstage where we do not have eyes. Anand says, hey Tom, looking fresh with this look. Thank you, Anand, I appreciate that. I just thought I'd try something a little bit different and see how it plays out on stream. It's not a perfect shave either. I need to work on actually shaving like a human being. You know, like a grown-up. I've not quite mastered the art yet. Noob, how you doing, man? Supersonic X says good afternoon, and good afternoon to you too. A tip of the cap. So, what is the plan for tonight's SmackDown? Well, as usual, it's going to involve a lot of Roman Reigns. It's like a lot of Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns will be the opening and closing of the show. With Big E already having a new challenger, Roman Reigns now needs a new challenger to be set up as well. My expectation is that we're going to be looking at probably Jeff Hardy at this point. I feel that would make the most sense. But there are plentiful opportunities for Sheamus and for people lower down the card. Not Drew McIntyre though. Drew McIntyre should be saved for later on in proceedings. Brock Lesnar will not feature. He is not likely to feature until the end of the year, the beginning of next year. I suspect we'll see him day one. And this may be one of the reasons we do not have a TLC pay-per-view. One of many, of course. But we won't see Brock Lesnar tonight. All of the focus will be on Roman Reigns and Charlotte Flair. They are considered the top two in the company as of right now. And I do mean the company. So Fox and this WWE Smackdown will be focusing largely on the two of them, Charlotte Flair and Roman Reigns. The WWE is still waiting for some assurances, but at least with Roman, they know they can push forward and push forward fast. That's a weird phrase. Ed says it's Tommy time. Tommy. Never enjoyed being called Tommy. Always felt strange. I think I watched too much Rugrats as a kid. Just makes me uncomfortable. Anan says, your pick, Charlotte versus Becky, last woman standing. Sasha versus Bayley, Hell in a Cell. And Becky versus Sasha, Hell in a Cell. Okay, I'm going to eliminate Sasha versus Bayley immediately. I don't think it was anywhere near as good as the other two. Like, it was good, but it should have been better considering who it was and their history. Charlotte versus Becky for me is the one that I've watched back the most, but Evolution as a pay-per-view is the one I've watched back the most. My personal opinion is that Becky versus Sasha is easily the best of the women's Hell in a Cells and stands up there with the best Hell in a Cell matches. Primarily, and I'm going to be a little cheeky here, primarily because of that spot that they did with the chair, where they literally just propped a chair up on the kendos. Oh, it's such inventive stuff, and you don't often see it elsewhere. There's a reason that the tag team Hell in a Cell with New Days and the Usos and the women's Hell in a Cell Becky versus Sasha was so well received. I think I'm going to go with Last Woman Standing. However, it's a real tough one and a real close one between that Hell in a Cell match. That's a really tough ask, Anand. A really tough one. You do provide me with quite the challenge at times. Tell you what I'm going to do, based off of that, I think this could be fun. I'm going to create a poll, and I'm going to leave it for a while, and I'm going to have 4 options. 4 options. We're going to keep it really easy. Who is the best of the 4 horsewomen for you? I'm going to go alphabetically. Bayley, Becky, Charlotte, that's not the right thing, Sasha. I'm just going to leave that there for a little bit, see what you guys think, and see who jumps in with it. Because I'll probably leave it going for about 20 minutes, I think. 20 minutes. So once we hit 28, I'll stop it there. Corbin says, why has the WWE pulled Charlotte Flair from upcoming media appearances? There is a reason. I've been able to reach out and find out that reason. However, that's one for spoiler warning, I'm afraid. Charlotte has been pulled from media. I will be discussing that later on Twitch. But this is a preview show, so I'll be sticking largely to the previews. If you want to check out the Twitch, that is, of course, twitch.tv/Tom Colohue. So, as I say, we are waiting for assurances from Charlotte Flair that everything will be business as usual. The expectation is that without Becky Lynch there, Charlotte will, and I quote, behave. Sasha Banks is believed to be more than capable of handling Charlotte's ego. However, there are a number of changes that they have already made, with the design being to keep things running smoothly as possible going forwards. It's clever. It's clever. Ed, you and these polls do not get on, do they? You do not get on with these polls. Michael is here saying, hi Tom, welcome Michael. How the devil are you? Glad to see you. Glad to see you. We are currently previewing SmackDown ahead of time. And I've talked about Roman and the fact that we need a new challenger for him. I expect something to play out very similarly to what happened on Raw. Probably a big multi-man match in which someone like Jeff Hardy comes across as a big deal going into the win. Now, whether or not it will be Jeff Hardy, I'm not sure. He was, after all, just getting beaten up by Austin Theory. So it might not be the strongest of options. However, I feel there are a number of people lower down the card who could do with an opportunity. I want to shout out to Ricochet here. Put Ricochet in a match like that, have him pin Jeff Hardy, because Jeff can afford it, and give us a Ricochet versus Roman match. Why not? Not a huge draw match, but it won't be happening on pay-per-view. It'll be happening in the build-up to Survivor Series. So I would like to see that, especially going forwards if we get, for example, Ricochet versus Shinsuke coming afterwards. That works for me. That works pretty well for me. That said, I would be very pleasantly surprised. I definitely don't expect it, but it would be a lot of fun for Swerve to get the opportunity. Just before they fully say he's a heel, throw him in there. I know he won't win, but it would be fun. It would be fun. Kevin says, can you see Becky Lynch retaining her championship on Raw? Yes, I can. She will be going up against Bianca Belair shortly. That will be what she basically does until the Royal Rumble at least. After that, we'll have to wait and see. But I do think we're going to see Becky keeping her championship and Bianca Belair sort of fading out of the top level picture for a couple of months until around SummerSlam time. I don't think that's a bad plan. Noob says, not to mention getting selfies by Austin Theory. Yeah, Austin Theory's got a weird gimmick. I mean, it's consistent. I can't complain. It is consistent, but it is a weird gimmick. If this is your first time joining us, please do consider hitting that subscribe button. We do daily wrestling news videos here on the channel. We have just posted something about SummerSlam, for example, and earlier this week we posted about the next challenges lining up for Roman Reigns and the planned, the future, as it were, for the Sonya Deville storyline. If you are, of course, active here and you're already subscribed, you can hit that notification bell to get alerts whenever we go live. And you can also click the like button. That's a big help in keeping us growing here on the channel. We've had a pretty good week. A pretty good week. It's been very fun. YouTube continues to grow pretty exponentially. If I look at my numbers, I'm on about 2,300 watch hours out of the required 4,000. I expect to be on about 3,200 by Christmas, as it were. So not quite to the level where we're going monetized, but we're not at the 1,000 subscribers yet. So bit by bit, we're building very nicely. Meanwhile, Twitch continues to grow. We are currently at 433 followers with a target of 500 by the end of the year. So thank you everyone who does continually support. JD says, oh Lord, now that you said that about Bianca, people will blame Bayley, Sasha, and then lump the horsewomen together again. People will blame whoever they want to blame. Unfortunately, I've sort of had to just accept that people are just going to blame whoever. The amount of times I've reported something and then I've been accused of reporting something completely different, literally completely different. People still think I reported NXT UK was shutting down. At no point have I ever reported that. At no point have I ever said NXT UK is shutting down. But people still accuse me of it, which is funny. Also quite funny, people still accuse me of making up the story that AJ Styles was going to move to SmackDown after WrestleMania when he lost to The Undertaker. Literally, when you Google my name, that's the first thing that comes up. People accusing me of lying about that. And then it happened. And the thread's still there. It's infuriating. People will essentially make up whatever end results they want. You learn that. Kevin says, I feel bad for every Ring of Honor talent who lost the job. Yeah. That is it's a heart-wrenching situation, especially the way that they found out. It's not something anyone really enjoys covering, but it sucks, and it's a horrible situation for everyone involved. If you can, now would be a fantastic time to spend money on some Ring of Honor merch. It would be an absolutely fantastic time to spend time on some Ring of Honor merch, and keep an eye out for anyone who starts a Twitch. If you see people streaming on Twitch who are Ring of Honor talent, even just by joining and lurking, you'll be doing them a really big favour, getting them closer to the point of making money on Twitch, and that can make a huge difference to them and their future, as it were. So please do consider that. Anan says, we saw a bit of a character change in Damien Priest last Raw. Currently it's not like a full heel or face. Will WWE slowly turn him heel? Would love to see his dominant victory in Survivor Series. I believe it was a tease, a bit of a taste test to see how the fans react to a bit more of an angry Damien Priest. I also believe they're just establishing a bit more of a character, and at the same time, I think we got a pretty good match out of it, and I think that's something that really needs celebrating. We got a pretty good match out of it that I really enjoyed, and I think several other people for the watch along really enjoyed it as well. So I'm very glad that we had that, very glad that they could deliver that for us. At the same time, I don't know if they'll go all the way with Damien Priest. I feel they need him as a face because they are lacking in top draw faces. And Damien Priest, for me, is the is the immediate replacement for Drew McIntyre on Raw. He could slot straight into that Drew McIntyre role immediately, going up against Bobby Lashley pretty much straight away. I'd like to see a feud between Priest and Randy Orton. I think there's a lot to cover there. A feud with Priest and Omos could be a lot of fun. There is more sense from where I'm sitting to have Damien Priest stay as a face and go into those feuds rather than turn him heel, because at that point it's basically him versus Big E. That's basically it. Oh, maybe Balor. Batman, welcome, says, can you see Bianca versus Becky at SummerSlam next year? No, I see Bianca versus either Bayley at SummerSlam next year or Bianca versus someone else, for example, Alexa Bliss. I think that makes more sense. Becky, for me, doesn't hold the championship past WrestleMania. That's not what I personally think is going to happen. Ed says, will spoiler warning have any new information on the temporary closing of Ring of Honor? Yes, it will. Let me just check to see what I've noted down and how much I can actually say. Okay, not that much, but I talk a little bit about what's going on in the office, as it were. The backstage. The backstage, yeah. I talk about what's been going on behind the scenes a little bit. The plans going forward for Ring of Honor. And I've been talking to people who worked there as to what they have been told. I'll give you a hint. It's very different to what most people on Twitter have been told. But that is for spoiler warning later on today, which will be on Twitch. If you have not yet joined the Twitch, you can jump over and join for spoiler warning, 10 PM Mondays and Fridays, and a few special shows in between at twitch.tv/Tom Colohue. I realise I'm in a lot of zones now, and it's difficult sometimes to keep track of how everywhere I am. But hopefully, in the near future, it'll all come together really nicely. I should ideally make a website that makes more sense of this, so I can just embed wherever I am and people can join that way. Anand says, what's next for Xavier Woods? Any update on this? What I've been told is, and I won't go into too much detail once again, but what I've been told is there is no significant push planned for Xavier Woods. Now, significant is a strong word. It could mean that he's not going towards a top championship. It could be that he ends up in an intercontinental title feud with Baron Corbin for the next 3 months. It could be that tonight Xavier Woods wins an opportunity to wrestle Roman, loses in the build to Survivor Series, which would make sense going up against Big E, and then drops back down the card again. It's difficult to say exactly what's going to happen, but I've been told there'll be no significant push planned. As regards Ring of Honor and streaming, Ed says, Sledge from Ring of Honor streams already, and I'm expecting Danhausen will soon enough. Danhausen, for me, must be snatched up by someone. Kervin says, what was your favourite Dark Side of the Ring episode? They're all pretty miserable, to be honest with you, mate. And I say that with love. They're very well made, and they're very informative, but they're all pretty miserable, so I don't really have a favourite, per se. You come out of each one feeling that little bit more depressed and likely to just say, you know what? Nah, it's not for me, this whole wrestling thing. It's not for me. So I can't necessarily say I've got a favourite. But they, as I say, are very informative, and you learn a lot about what happened backstage, because my God, world's a bit crazy, and wrestling, no exception. If you are just joining us, please do remember to click that like button. And if you've been here for a little bit and you haven't already clicked like, by all means, please do have a quick look down there. Have you clicked that little thumbs up? Is it highlighted? Is it there? Is it coloured in? Go for it. That little thumbs up can make a massive difference to these shows. And the faster we grow, the more we can help everyone else grow. That's what I'm hoping for. And if you haven't yet, by all means, please click that subscribe button. That could make a big difference to me as well. Over the last few days, we've gone from 736 down to 732 and back up to 735 again. I'm not someone who gets upset when he loses subscribers, because ultimately the subscribers I've lost aren't actually a loss because they wouldn't have been watching to begin with. So if they're not going to watch, I'd rather not have them subscribed to make room for people who will. So I'm very happy about that. Ooh, we do have one new subscriber, 736. Fantastic. Good news. Good news. Michael says, not even sure who Roman will lose to at this point. I'm still feeling confident it'll be Drew. I'm still feeling pretty confident Drew McIntyre is going to be taking that championship. Rob says, old afternoon to you. Old afternoon. What are you saying, Robs? What are you saying, mate? What are you saying? What are you saying? What are you saying? Oriona, welcome. Says, hi, Tom. Just saying hi from work. Have a great stream. Thank you very much, Oriona. Thank you very much for dipping in. It's very nice to see you. Hopefully you're well. Hoping you're very well. Right. SmackDown. So, we've had a talk about Charlotte Flair, and my God, was there so much to cover. We've talked about Brock Lesnar. We also need new challenges for the Usos. We know going into Survivor Series, which is still about 3.5 weeks away. How long? Is it 3 weeks? I think it's 3 weeks. Go down. 4, which is still 4 weeks away, Survivor Series. So they're going to do some things in between to keep us interested. The New Day don't really make that much sense as challenges right now, considering Kofi Kingston is basically the sidebar to Xavier Woods, who, of course, Xavier Woods was a sidebar for Kofi Kingston when Kofi Kingston was WWE Champion. So everyone's happy about that. We need some tag team challenges. We need some tag teams. I can't see Hit Row or Viking Raiders being involved at this point. Mansoor and Ali, they're not going to get the opportunity because they're not a tag team anymore. This doesn't really leave anyone. So for me, the SmackDown Tag Team Champions, they don't have anyone to work against. So what I'd like to see is a few pairings. Maybe tease, or at least briefly reunite, Sheamus and Cesaro. Give us the Usos versus Sheamus and Cesaro for a couple of weeks, but then let's have Sheamus and Cesaro completely split up, tear each other apart, and just go to war just once. Just one match that ends indecisively because the referee just stops it. Gotta be honest, I'd really enjoy that. We are going to have a championship match for the Intercontinental Championship between Shinsuke Nakamura and Baron Corbin. And I've got to be honest, I think Baron Corbin might be taking this. I think he's going to take this championship so that we have a heel as the Intercontinental Champion. I think then that paves the way for Corbin versus Cesaro, potentially Corbin versus Hardy, more of that, and a number of other people lower down the card, such as Corbin versus Ricochet. I think there are more low down the card faces than there are heels right now. That said, I do hope we see Shinsuke retain, because I want to see Shinsuke versus Swerve. I want to see Shinsuke versus Ricochet. I want to see all of that, because man, there is exciting concepts when it comes to Shinsuke versus basically everyone. Hi Steve, how you doing, man? Says, hi Tom, hope you're keeping well. Nostalgic question from me today. What has been your favourite era in SmackDown history? Ooh, that's a good question. See, SmackDown when I was growing up, I couldn't watch because here in the UK we didn't have access to the channels that fueled it, so SmackDown simply wasn't available to view. With this in mind, I didn't see the corporate ministry era. I didn't see the Attitude Era on SmackDown until years later, when I basically caught up with all of it at once. With this in mind, and the fact that I didn't watch wrestling for quite a while, I've got to say, when the brand split first came back, when the championship feud was Ambrose versus AJ Styles, when Becky Lynch was on the rise, when The Miz, Alexa Bliss, Baron Corbin were cutting great promos on Talking Smack. That was the perfect era of SmackDown for me personally. It's a good question, Steve. Dominic says, Tom, you look 10 years younger and I miss the music. Losing the facial hair does really de-age me quite considerably. I'm very aware of it, that I look a lot younger. I don't look 33 when I'm wearing no facial hair. What can I say? AK says, hey Tom, how are you, mate? With news of Ring of Honor shutting, what's your favourite memory or match from Ring of Honor? I'm not that experienced with Ring of Honor, to be completely honest. My experience as a member of the media with Ring of Honor was terrible. Their PR team, absolutely useless. There are no redeeming features about the way that they dealt with the media. And that's one of the reasons I feel that Ring of Honor never really hit the top level. They couldn't hit the top level because they couldn't get the media talking about them. Because every time they did, literally every time they did, they would start alienating that member of the media. That's what they did. For example, you couldn't use any pictures other than the ones that they supplied in a very small archive on their website. Those were the only images that you could use of their wrestlers. Even if you'd taken your own pictures at shows, they didn't want it. And they would let you know. So my experience of Ring of Honor, not great. Not great. The only real shows I've watched involved Jay White. Or one was when Matt Taven won the championship. I remember that ladder match pretty well. Remember Enzo and Cass jumping the barricade without informing God? God, not happy, ready to actually kill. Essentially, Ring of Honor was responsible for some great wrestling and some great wrestlers. But my word, were there some shoddy business practices going on there. And this is coming home to roost. There'll be more information on that on Spoiler Warning. Rob says SmackDown 2016 was very fun. It was. That was definitely a highlight for me. The Miz was at his best. I remember the Miz versus Cena feud leading into Miz and... I forgot her name. Miz and Maurice versus Nikki and John Cena. The build to that was much better than the match, but still good shit. Still good shit. JD says, you're not the only one. We're ready to immediately cut, and so you should be. That's the way to do it. That's the way to do it. Michael says, WWE could use that tape library of the likes of AJ, Samoa Joe, KO, Sammy, and Seth. True, but I don't honestly think it's worth it to them at this point, because why would you need the tape library when you've got all the footage already from the wrestlers that you brought from Ring of Honor? There's not many people that they've brought from Ring of Honor recently. Maybe Kyle O'Reilly. But even then, they've got plenty enough material of Kyle O'Reilly already. I think WWE will bid for the tape library, but I think they will bid for it purely so that AEW have to spend more money in order to obtain it. Michael says, I loved Ring of Honor when Adam Cole was there. That was a heyday. I remember watching Adam Cole live many times back in the day. He is still technically the reigning PCW Cruiserweight Champion. Don't let anyone tell you different. But he was one who was he was happy to take the loss to much lower down the card guys to put over the local talent because he was wrestling in a local area. He was happy to do that, and it stands out when you do that. I remember seeing Kingdom for the first time and not really knowing who they were. That changed. Young Drizzy, welcome, says, I'm so happy for Eva Marie having a lead role in her new movie. Eva Marie's job in wrestling is not necessarily to be a wrestler, is to get as much attention onto the product as possible. Movies are definitely a very strong way to do that. A very strong way. Steve says, thanks, mate. Yes, I really enjoyed that era. Rewatched Backlash 2016 earlier this year again, and it was the first SmackDown only pay-per-view after the rebrand. It was a very exciting time. I think a large part of the reason that was such an exciting time as well was that, to be entirely blunt, we didn't expect a lot. I had low expectations going into that period because Becky Lynch was the only top name woman in the division. They had John Cena, but not really. Randy Orton was working with the Wyatt family. So you didn't really have any particularly huge names. Apart from Dean Ambrose, but he didn't have Roman Reigns, he didn't have Seth Rollins. It genuinely looked like it was just full of cast-offs. It genuinely did. But they rose, and they rose far and fast. SmackDown dominated Raw in that era. It absolutely dominated Raw. And I really do wish we could go back, but I feel that's kind of what NXT 2.0 is going for at the minute, just with much lesser names, as it were. Steve says, favourite SmackDown theme of all time, or from the ones you've heard? I actually really like this one. Like, I genuinely like the one that we've got now. If it's still, are you ready for a good time? I don't know, I just like the finish part where it all wraps up and it's like, yeah! And then it starts again. I don't know. There's been some good stuff. Like the Attitude Era Raw is War theme will always be my favourite Raw theme. Just because you can't really lose. The amount of times they go into commercial break and I just start going... I just couldn't stop myself. Completely uncontrollable. I'm a mess. What can I say? Ed says, The Kingdom, Ring of Honor bringing in New Japan before New Japan had American shows. Meeting Naito for the first time, being there to see Cody win the Ring of Honor title. Lots of great Ring of Honor memories for me, Ed. A journeyman right there. Experienced in the ways. Welcome, Ethan. Glad to see you, mate. How you doing? The poll is ended. The poll was ended. Sasha Banks has won with 47%, deciding who is the best of the four horsewomen. Second is Becky Lynch on 34%. Third is Charlotte on 13%. Finally, in fourth, Bayley on only 4%. I'm surprised at the percentage for Bayley. That is a one vote. Pardon me. That is a one vote situation. Though Ed kind of wanted to vote for it, didn't you, Ed? Didn't you, Ed? AK, welcome, says, were you surprised Bron Breakker didn't win this week from Kratos? No, I was not surprised. My head said he was going to retain Ciampa, but if you watch the preview show that myself and Ed Fries did, right here, and well, not right here, it was on Twitch, then yeah, my heart wanted Bron Breakker to win, but it did not. Indeed, Michael, 4%. Just 4%. JD says that actually sucks. I think Bayley is the second best one. This is the downside of these polls. It's very much the downside. I can't do a poll of like who is the best, who is the second best, who is the third best, who is the worst, to actually get a proper ranking, as it were. Makes things difficult. It does. It makes things difficult. For anyone just joining, hi, I'm Tom Colohue. I'm a freelance wrestling journalist who also works for PW Torch, using Nick and Tom's Intercontinental Adventure, the podcast, as a platform to do so. I host Spoiler Warning, which is a new show on twitch.tv/Tom Colohue, and also Raw and SmackDown and pay-per-view watch parties. Our next big pay-per-view watch party will be Survivor Series. If you're just joining us, and you haven't yet, please do consider clicking subscribe, clicking that notification bell, and clicking like if you can as well. That little thumbs up can make a massive difference to my growth on this channel. And I'm very much appreciative of the amount of likes that we have had on my regular video programming recently. We're in double figures for likes all over the place. All over the place. And I'm incredibly appreciative of that. That makes a massive difference to what we've been able to achieve in these shows. A massive difference. And it's one of the reasons we're continuing to grow very well leading into Survivor Series, which should be very exciting time. Very exciting time. Noob says, it seems like you're right on Monday. It looks like Asuka is staying on Raw. I do have a question. Do you think Asuka and Charlotte should be on separate brands? I know Asuka and Charlotte have wrestled a lot, but so have Asuka and Becky. So I think at this point, Asuka is not likely to be top level for a long time, if ever again, because they did not get behind her. They just did not get behind her. Corbin says, so WWE moved Dakota Kai back to NXT. They did. They essentially decided to keep her. From what I can tell, I'll be detailing more of this in Spoiler Warning, but from what I can tell, there were talks about bringing back her Twitch, and they could not convince her of anything particularly exciting on the main roster. So the decision was made to keep her in NXT. Essentially could not convince her to sign a new main roster contract. Wasn't pitched good storylines. Wants to get back to streaming on Twitch. Things fell apart. More on that story later. Michael says maybe Rampage should go head to head again so WWE can have more of a preview for SmackDown. I'd like to see Rampage take the fight to them. I really would. But I don't see it happening anytime soon. Because they can't. Ethan says, did Charlotte go off script last week? I have a video out on that, detailing exactly what happened when it comes to Charlotte Flair last week. I'll grab the video for you, Ethan. It is just in my list right here. It's only a couple of days ago. 12 minutes and 9 seconds. Does Charlotte Flair already have one foot out of the door in the WWE? So this video is for you, Ethan, and we'll answer that question as well as much more information about what was actually happening with Charlotte Flair. Ed says SmackDown and FS1 again tonight with multiple replays, it seems. Yeah, now they could potentially challenge. Rampage could challenge and try to beat them in the demo. But without that extra half hour, which was detrimental to SmackDown last time, I do think SmackDown should comfortably see them off. However, there is not as much not as much advertising for either show this week. So we'll see how it plays out. Either way, SmackDown straight onto FS1 again. This is going to upset it. This is going to upset their rhythm. And when you look at Dynamite this week, back to under 1 million. And continuing to go down. Going off your regularly scheduled programming is a bad thing. As you guys know, because when I don't do spoiler warning at 10 p.m, a lot of people get confused. Anand says, Batista in 2014, Reigns in 2015, Triple H in 2016. Your worst Royal Rumble winner booked. It's not of them. None of them. Probably when Randy Orton won the Royal Rumble and then went on to WrestleMania to lose to Triple H. Wasn't a good moment for anyone involved. You know, thinking of the whole picture, that wasn't a great Royal Rumble win. Michael says, Wrestling Observer says Saudi shows for next February and October. Basically, everyone's been saying that, Michael. I've mentioned that in a couple of live streams as well. That it just makes perfect sense. Saudi shows to be in February and October because that's when Saudi shows almost always are. I do think that we're likely to see a third one next year, and I've talked about that as well. AK says, next 3 big stars for years could be Belair, Sonya and Ripley. They could be, but I do think and hope at least that Shayna Baszler will get in there slightly ahead of someone that you've listed. But for years to come, I think you're looking at Belair and Damien Priest as well. Damien Priest definitely merits a mention on that one. AK says, would Raquel now move up? Probably not. I do believe she still requires a little bit of further development, and she has another match coming with Dakota Kai, so not quite yet. Alan says, updating Elias, he was drafted to Raw lastly. He was, and at the moment they are struggling to come up with a plan for him, or at least they have been for the last few weeks. When they can pitch him something that actually works, they will do so, but basically at this point, they've given him some time off, his own creative hiatus, and they've kind of stopped trying, last I heard. At least just for a little bit, giving him some time away. Brock suggests that Sasha and Bayley are the 2 best 4 horsewomen. Well, that's not the ranking that we got here. Bayley got 4% of the vote. If only you'd been here sooner, Brock. Also, welcome. How you doing, mate? Rob says they did their part to promote the new Ghostbusters Afterlife movie, though. They did. They did. And why the hell not? You know, a bit of product placement can go a long way. It can go a very long way. Right. Let's get back to our SmackDown preview. With Halloween in 2 days, usually around this time of year, you see something along the lines of a trick or street fight. It is very likely we're going to see a trick or street fight at some point tonight. I don't know who it will feature, but there's a lot of people who could feature for that role. I would like to see some sort of trick and battle royal, or trick or over the top rope, or some ridiculous name like that. I'd be happy with that. I don't mind the ridiculousness that happens in segments like this. I'll forgive it. I have no real issue with it. We had vignettes for a number of wrestlers last week that did not manage to appear, largely because of the amount of time taken up by Brock Lesnar. And those were Sheamus, Aaliyah, Ridge Holland, Angel Garza, and Humberto Carrillo. Will we see Aaliyah wrestle tonight? Probably not. Will we see a women's wrestling match at all tonight? Hopefully. Hopefully that will be Shayna Baszler one-on-one with Naomi. That's what I'm hoping to see. We could still see Rhea Ripley and Nikki Cross appear to face off with new challengers for the Women's Tag Team Championships, but I don't see that happening due to the lack of a Women's Tag Team division. Mansoor and Ali have basically played out their storyline. I don't see that going anywhere in future. I see both of them missing this week. And we also saw last week Hit Row appear and squash a tag team. I expect this week, in a slightly different element, we will see Hit Row appear, cut promos, and then squash a local tag team. I think we're going to get that for a number of weeks, and I think that's just to establish Hit Row and get people popping for them. It'll work. And as long as it will work, the WWE will definitely continue to do it. It's the right thing to do. You know, that's what I'm seeing. It's the right thing to do. Ethan says SmackDown's going to be good tonight, hopefully. Hopefully so. If you've not checked out a SmackDown watch-along, and you're watching SmackDown tonight, please do pop over to twitch.tv/Tom Colohue. Click follow, and you will get a notification as soon as we go live. Not just for spoiler warning, but also for our SmackDown watch party that you can join in on tonight. So please do consider doing so. Michael says, I hate the goofy holiday special matches this time of the year. I hated it on Dynamite 2 this week. That's fair. As long as you're consistent, that's fair. Anand says there was a report on Sportskeeda stating Charlotte's contract will expire next year. Do you think if things improve in the future, Charlotte will stay or will she go to AEW? I think if things improve for her, she'll stay. If not, she'll leave. I don't think she necessarily will immediately choose AEW, but I think they would be stupid not to. When you say a report on Sportskeeda, Anand, Sportskeeda do not report news. They re-report it. They aggregate it. So when you are reading Sportskeeda reports, please do keep an eye out for where the source is. If, for example, that is Wrestling Observer, I'm believing it slightly less. If, for example, that report is TalkSport, then the report probably came from Charlotte Flair, so we can completely believe it. AK says, better heel, Reigns or MJF? Best face wrestler currently, probably Hangman. Difficult for me to say. As I said, I don't watch enough AEW to really say one way or the other. I like what Hangman Page is doing. They've been clever with him, but he needs that big moment now, the crowning glory, to get him firmly on the right path. I like MJF as a heel. I think he's everything that should be go away heat, but he doesn't get that because AEW is still benefit of the doubt. Roman, however, it's very classic, and there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. MJF is the future. Reigns is now. AK says probably waiting for a Hit Row rap with Pritchard writing. Yeah, that'll go down about as well as a lead balloon. Yay. Ed says Hit Row shirt is sold out on www.shop.com. Love it. That did fly. Hit Row are a big deal. They just are. And I'm very, very interested to see where they go going forwards. Ethan says, do you think we'll see Banks and Charlotte tonight? Yep, absolutely. Not necessarily the match, but we'll definitely see both of them continue the build towards it. Michael said, I'd love to see the Briscoes have some matches in AEW next year. I've seen the Briscoes wrestle against GOD, and my God, was that a fun match. My God, was that a fun match. The Briscoes are a team that should be picked up by anyone. WWE will be making bids. They will 100% be making bids. Getting the Briscoes into NXT will really strengthen that tag division. However, with all of this potentially available talent, there will be a lot of very, very big offers being made. Max, welcome. Says, do you think Sasha is going to win this feud this time around? If not, what is the point? That depends on Charlotte. If the WWE are confident that the problems with Charlotte are in the past, Sasha Banks will lose. If the WWE believe that they can't trust Charlotte, Charlotte will lose, and we will end up with Becky Lynch versus Sasha Banks at Survivor Series, however temporarily it might be. Sasha long-term is not planned to win the feud, but this is definitely one of those moments where I have to say, things do change, and it is up to Charlotte, really. JD says, I actually love Charlotte as a performer, but I would like to see her put over more women to elevate the women's division. I think less heat would happen then. I think that's fair. I'm trying to think of women that Charlotte has lost against, and there are actually quite a few. Nia Jax is an obvious one quite recently, but also she's lost to Liv Morgan a few times. She lost to Nikki Cross, but not clean. She's lost to Rhea Ripley, but not quite clean. Charlotte is very heavily protected. That's just the way it is. And Rob says, Riddle face-wise heading on the up. Indeed he is. Riddle, for me, the fact that they've not really pushed him too hard, but are still pushing him, it's clever. It's clever. Fair enough, JD. Fair enough. I can't think of big pay-per-view matches where she's taken the big loss. I can't. She should have already returned the loss to Asuka in my mind. But if she's not booked to do that, she's not booked to do that. Michael says, this is why I don't want Sasha going against Charlotte. I don't want it just for Sasha to lose again. This is why I didn't want the feud now. I wanted to build towards Charlotte versus Shayna. Shayna takes the championship, then Sasha can beat Charlotte when the championship's not involved. I don't really want either of them as the champion. I want someone new as the champion. I want this WrestleMania to end with two new women's champions who've never been champion before. Although, to be fair, I still kind of want Bayley to beat Becky. That's just me. That's just me. To everyone watching, if you have not yet clicked subscribe, please do consider it. This is a channel where we talk about wrestling news. You will get news here that you cannot get anywhere else. Today we talked about SummerSlam. Yesterday we were speaking about the plans for Sonya Deville's storyline going forwards. And before that we were talking about future challenges for Roman Reigns. So let's grab the latest video about Sonya Deville. And I'm going to put that right there. Brock, that does not surprise me. Absolutely does not surprise me that you only want to see Sasha wrestle if she's going to win. Michael says Sasha is more deserving to win a match at Mania than anyone else on the roster. Don't entirely agree, but when it comes to specifically a match at Mania, I do get what you're saying about Sasha needing a win. It's about bloody time. I don't think she's more deserving than anyone else, but I do think she's been given a lot back, and it's time for her to actually get something to begin with. And AK says Sonya versus Shayna in a pit fight would be fun. Oh yeah, it would. Those two in general would just put on an incredible match that I really want to see. In the meantime, please do remember to hit like on the video. If you have subscribed, you can always click that notification bell to be notified immediately whenever we go live. I will be live for Spoiler Warning at twitch.tv/Tom Colohue later. That's 10 PM UK time, 5 PM Eastern time over in the US, where we will be talking about Ring of Honor. We will be talking about Dakota Kai. We'll be talking a little bit more about Charlotte and more. We will be breaking news at twitch.tv/Tom Colohue. If you've not yet gone over and clicked follow, please do so. We will also be watching live a SmackDown watch party. That will be on Twitch as well. The next time I'm live on YouTube will be Sunday night, 10 PM. That is 5 PM Eastern time, where we'll have our usual Sunday night show. Sean is stunned that I've shaved. Yep. Not at all smooth. Kevin says, if WWE have nothing for Toni Storm on SmackDown, give me Toni Storm versus Mandy Rose. Toni Storm was called up because NXT has nothing for her, and they essentially wanted to move her on. She was called up with no significant plan. Sean says, any more news about Greg Hamilton? Nothing I can really share. Nothing that hasn't already been shared. Right. A big thank you to everyone for joining me. I have been Tom Colohue. You've been fantastic. And I'll see you all, hopefully, for the watch party for SmackDown and for Spoiler Warning. Have a great night, everybody.